Great to have you here. This is a unique moment, a moment that unites all of us. We all face anxiety and loss. We all see broken systems. We all experience the impact of the climate crisis. This is a unique moment. This is a turning point if we choose to make it one. This is a moment to reflect, to learn, to share, and to co-create. And I invite you to contribute. I ask you to contribute. I ask you to partner to fix broken systems. I ask you to join the movement so everyone can step into their change-making power. I ask you to nominate the next generation of changemakers. And I ask you to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise. And I ask you to donate to support changemakers. This is our moment to fix the world. This is our moment to contribute. Today is the day, and you are the one.
Hello, everyone, and it's very nice to have you here this evening with us. I know this is probably the 10th session you're attending today, and it's only the beginning of the summit, so thank you so much. It's either very early in the morning or quite late in the evening. I'm Ana Murray. I'm co-director for Ashoka Romania, and together with my colleague Tomina, that is the session coordinator, will be guiding you through this session with two amazing Ashoka fellows, Ioana Baur and Arturo Ortega. And we will try to take you through the journey of civic participation and how to ignite that. And I think that from the streets of Mexico to the churches and schools of Romania, we have plenty to learn from our wonderful fellows. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Ioana, Arturo, and I would like to kick it off with a question that's been on my mind ever since I've joined Ashoka: how to ignite action and transform into action what we see around us and all the passions that we have, and we want to change the world, but where to start? So what actually made you notice that something has to change, and how did you ignite that change in your interventions?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's such an honor to be here with two of the people that I actually get to work with. So Ana, Tomina, thank you for putting this together. And Arturo, it's so great to be sharing this with you. So my personal journey actually didn't start from a place where I wanted to take action. It started with a place where I actually wanted to prove that the problem wasn't that big. So I work in preventing human trafficking and in different areas of this. But when I first found out about the issue, I was far away from Romania. I was far away from what human trafficking meant. And as I was researching the issue more and more, Romania kept popping up. And my first thought was, there's no way that this can happen. And it started with trying to disprove some of the things that I was hearing and listening, because in my experience, I lived in real Romania. So had this happened around me, I would have known about it. So I guess if I were to sum it up, even though you were reluctant in the beginning to do something that doesn't disqualify you, it actually might be these type of moments that are the most compelling ones, in which you realize that reality actually looks differently and you can have an impact when it comes to that.
Thank you very much, Ioana. Arturo, how was it for you?
My story, it's strange. I used to work as a video jockey in MTV Latin America. I used to be a host guy. No, I'm really good like talking to the camera. I really love that. So I used to work in MTV Latin America, and when I returned to Mexico City, I discovered that my country was it changed a lot, but really bad, no. And I discovered that the main problem for our country, and I could say for many countries in the world, is not the inequality, is not the hunger, is not the corruption or the injustice. Our main problem is the citizen apathy. Because we're apathetic citizens, all the problems grow and without realizing, no? So I believe that a true problems that is normalized is the one that is a real problem, the one that we don't see it like as a problem, the one that is part of our life. And for that reason, I discovered that I have to change that, the citizen apathy, how to detonate something in the mind of the Mexicans, and they realize that the thing that we're doing or the thing that we're living is not normal, no? So for that reason, I discovered that the humor could be a really powerful tool. The humor, when we use humor to communicate things, at least in the Mexican's mind, everything changed. So that like our main like mission in our life is to break that citizen apathy, because for us is the most important thing, no?
But the subject that you're tackling with humor are no laughing matter. And I think, Arturo, if you would expand a bit on how did you actually manage to convey all these funny videos into city halls taking action and doing something about it? I mean, how do you think from a viral video, which is to some extent in our minds as a marketing tool, not particularly as a public policy tool? And how did you manage to do that transformation?
We begin just to see it that with humor, the things that the government begin just to fix the things. I realized that in some ways the Mexican authorities they get used to don't hear things, but when you use ironic or sarcasm as a tool, it's a tool that they never expect. And for that reason, we begin just to fix a lot of things. And then humor is a really powerful tool for another reason, for just to don't have violence for the people, because it's pretty much like strange when I don't know, a Jesus Christ or a Roman or whatever, a pirate says things to you that could be like pretty much like, why you're saying this to me? When you use a custom, when you use creativity, that change, and it's in some way it's a shield for me, no, or for our team, and nothing. I believe like, and this is really important. In Los Supercívicos, we have like this expression that the best way just to attack a bad joke in some way. I'm saying that a bad joke is the way that we live in our countries with a lot of problems of infrastructure or whatever. The best way just to attack that joke is with another joke. So we, for example, that if we found a really big hole in the middle of the street, we say like, hey, we could take a bath inside that hole. Is that big? Let's use this kind of situation just to fix the problem. And it works really well, especially in our countries. I believe that Los Supercívicos could not work in countries as, I don't know, Japan or Switzerland. I don't know what, it would be a different Supercívicos, but not the one that we're using in Latin America, no? Well, at least in Mexico.
With cheese. But talking about the online environment, I think, Ioana, you have some very interesting examples of how you managed to translate prevention and prevention campaigns in the online space. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you tackled that?
Yeah, I think with some of the causes, you just have to admit that they're not sexy causes and they're not attractive, and people are not going to proactively come to you in order to find out more about them. So with human trafficking, that's one thing that we've noticed. We realize that the people who are vulnerable, as well as other stakeholders, if we want to engage them, that means that we need to go towards them, and we need to go towards them proactively. Because if I were to come and tell you, hey, do you want to hear about human trafficking and how horrible it is, chances are you're not necessarily going to feel like this is something that you're interested in, or that it's something that is in a way impacting you, right? It's not personal. However, if I come and tell you, hey, do you want a job and you're going to be able to make a lot of money and you don't need any experience and you don't really need to know anything about it, just you need to be open and fun. And if you actually bring a friend with you, then we're actually going to give you a bonus. So all of a sudden, I speak the language of a lot of the people who are vulnerable to human trafficking, and they are going to want to hear about that. So some of our campaigns are exactly that. They're in a way clickbait, so to speak, in order for people to come and find out more about the issue. One would be a fake job recruiting site where we very much mimic some of the websites that are, for example, advertising video chat, which a lot of times is actually a facade for exploitation in Romania and other countries in Europe. Or we've created this website that was in a way promoted in one of the biggest music festivals here in Romania. And we made it look like a fake escort site. So in a way, we took the reports from the European Union that has a lot of statistics and not necessarily a lot of personal information, and we made it personal. We had this reveal page where we were telling people that actually you should not be ordering people online, and if you are consuming the services of a person who is trafficked, you're actually responsible and liable in front of the legal system. So in a way, finding ways in which we're able to engage. And one of my mentors mentioned this, and it stayed with me, a way to bring human trafficking into the living room, right? Make it extremely personal so that people can actually feel like they can engage in the subject, find out more, and see how it personally impacts them.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting how you managed to, both of you, two very complicated subjects, apathy and public policies and responsibility of our political leaders, and human trafficking, to make it mainstream and open a conversation in which every one of us can engage. Because I think many times there is a barrier, at least as the perception, especially on complicated topics such as human trafficking. We have this feeling that, well, it's not around me, you know, or it's not something that I can change or be an ally. So how can a normal person become one of your allies in what you're doing?
And just going back, taking a step back, the fact that you mentioned mainstreaming it, I think this is one of the things that we're so thankful for the partnership with Ashoka. Because this is one of the things that we were able to do, right? Tackling these difficult conversations and these difficult subjects, we can do them alone. So strategic partnerships have such an important role. At the same time, it is a question of how do you get the unlikely allies? How do you get people involved? Because ultimately, when it comes to human trafficking, a lot of people think it affects the victims and their families directly, but it actually affects each and every one of us if we are to think about it. So with the unlikely allies, that was exactly the train of thought. So in each community, there are certain people who are privy to information that most of us aren't. And here I'm going to give you an example that may seem naive or very simplistic, but think about going to the beauty parlor, right? A beauty salon. And think about all the conversations that happen either with the person who does your hair or the person who, I don't know, waxes your legs or things like this. We realize that these are places that are still frequented by human trafficking victims, because if you think about it from an economical standpoint and looking at it from a perspective that's very raw but at the same time very real, someone who's done up, who has nice hair, who's waxed and looks nice, they're gonna bring more money in than somebody who looks battered and bruised. So the whole idea of talking to beauticians on the identification side came because at a certain point, I was in a situation where I had a lot of bruises on my legs. Somebody was asking me a lot of questions that I felt were very, very intrusive. And then as I was listening to those questions, I realized that that person was going above and beyond their normal role and the services that I was paying them for. They were trying to figure out if I was a victim of abuse or exploitation. And I think these are the moments that you meet and they stare you in the face and you realize, whoa, apart from, the usual allies and the official allies, in my case, I don't know, authorities, law enforcement, and so on, you have these key pillar figures in the communities that can act as a deterrent, as a barrier when it comes to human trafficking, as someone who can identify potential cases. The thing is, nobody goes to them and nobody empowers them to think about that specific role. So in a way, for us going towards, for example, Orthodox priests, it became very second nature or very normal. We stopped thinking about this partnership as an unlikely ally, because in Romania you have more Orthodox churches than you have schools. So the geographical reach makes sense. The mission makes sense. It was just a matter of how do we equip these people and how do we create tools in which we can come alongside of them so they can play a role in their community exactly for that.
Thank you so much. I was wondering, Arturo, what's the most unusual ally that you managed to convey in your quest for los supercívicos?
In the supercívicos, we discovered that the society is composed by three parts, no? One is the citizens, the other one is the government, and the third one, it will be the companies, no? These three parts are part of our society. And we discovered that, especially in Mexico, the way that the citizens, we treat our government is really bad, no? It's like, in some way, we pay for their salary, and for that reason, the way that we ask the things is really bad. So this triangle, in some, I mentioned the triangle because all these three parts are made of humans. We're humans. We're not different species. It's not like they're like a kind of a different kind of humans, no? So it is really simple just to, if we want something from the government, if we want something that the government has to fix, we have to ask them in a human way, in a normal way, as a human beings, no, not like as a way like most of the people just ask the things in a bad way, and because the other guys are human, they're gonna react in a bad way, no. So we discovered that if we use we have like more than 2 million followers in our social media, no. So we begin just to use that, I could say like that canyon in some way of communication, just to begin just to work in a kind of, you give me something and I give you something, but in a really good way, like as a human, you don't have to pay me anything and nothing. If you fix the problems that our citizens are reporting in our app, we're gonna, if we begin just to criticize you, we're gonna applaud you. So you don't have to pay anything. You don't have to, just fix the light, fix the hole in the street, fix whatever, the leak of the water, all the problems that the authority has to fix. And if you fix it, we're gonna give you that in exchange. And that formula, that human formula, works like really, really well in both sides. Because the government, the authority begins just to say like, okay, let's fix the problems of Super Cívicos because they're gonna applaud us for free. And the citizen begin just to realize that, yeah, he's right. I mean, we don't have to be all the time like that tough. It's part of the thing. So in some way, we discovered that thing, and we have a lot of allies as citizens, as companies too. When they make a bad thing, the companies, it's the same. I could say, sometimes I say like, hey, I love your product, but your product is doing this thing bad. And some companies, they take us in a good way and they show the face and say like, okay, sorry. And some of them, they don't react as humans and they do just cover, they disappear. So we have to return to that basic thing, like, hey guys, we're all humans, and the way that in the giving, in the asking is the giving. I don't know if you have like that expression, but in Mexico we have like that, no?
Which makes me also think about, reflect actually on two things that you said. One is non-conflictual. So don't make your interactions us versus them and try to antagonize, kind of point fingers that they're not doing something right. But the second one, which I find an art almost, is language. Because sometimes, and I think that you have some very interesting experiences, especially with teachers. How can you translate what you're doing, which can be very technical to some extent, or if you're trying to be to the level of political correctness, it doesn't make any sense anymore. A phrase, it doesn't sound human anymore. So how do you translate, and how was that process of creating content for schools for prevention?
I feel like every time you ask a question, I just want to go back a little bit, but I just want to applaud and celebrate what Arturo just said. Creating this win-win for the people that you want to work with is so important, and it should be second nature to all of us who are trying to tackle huge issues, right? But it's so counterintuitive to so many of us. Like, we have examples of organizations who are pointing fingers to everyone and their mom, from the president to other organizations that they're aiding and abating traffickers, instead of trying to find a constructive and a coordinated fashion to address these things. So it's so encouraging to hear this type of perspective and even putting the human piece in it, because ultimately that's who we are. Like, we're humans and we're bringing all our flaws and all our vulnerabilities into this. So it's just really, really encouraging. And I made that very personal. So thank you for that. As far as the schools and how do you address this? Because indeed, we're dealing with something that's really technical. And if you get lost just in the legal documents and in the legalese, right? This is not going to be a subject that's going to come mainstream. Now, on the other hand side, you have the sensationalizing part, where if you're not respectful and you don't adapt your communication so that it's dignifying towards the one that you ultimately want to serve, that is victims and survivors of human trafficking, then that's also very difficult and very challenging. So to us, if you look at the people who end up being trafficked, right, the ones that are most present in the statistics, they're not the academia. They're not the ones who are going to read the academic reports or the reports that are being put out and that you can barely understand if you have a master's degree. They're the ones who barely graduate eight classes, 8 grades, right? So how do you make this subject a subject that can be relatable and that can be understandable? And how do you give people practical tools? Because ultimately, my goal is not to come and, I don't know, blur out statistics or say numbers. My goal is for someone who actually hears about human trafficking is triggered by certain signs. So if a job is too good to be true, then take care, it might not be. Make sure that you know what the lover boy technique is and how does that translate into the correct characteristic of a person who could be a recruiter or a trafficker. Make sure you know a security password. These are things that don't just apply to human trafficking. Memorize an emergency contact before you go and work abroad. Make sure that you know the number of an anti-trafficking helpline or of the diplomatic mission that represents you in that specific country. These are all things that in a way are second nature to us who have grown in typical families or who had the fortunate you know path of being educated and having these resources put in our lap. But to some people these are not second nature and these are not common sense. So in a way, the things that we teach with the school curriculum that is actually downloaded and used by teachers on their own, teachers or professors, they're very much common sense. There are things that go beyond statistics, they go beyond definitions, they go beyond, I don't know, categorizations and so on. And they're very practical and they can be used by pretty much anyone.
So thank you, Joanna. So kind of like critical thinking, empathy, social awareness.
Discernment.
And yeah, when something is too good to be true, ask yourself twice if that it's actually the case. I just want to remind our audience that we still have half an hour, so we're very much looking for your questions, reflections that you're putting in the chat, and Tomina would be kind enough to facilitate them to us. I think this critical thinking and how to enable that in people also brings me back to you, Arturo, on how do you pick your subjects for how do you pick your battles? Because I think in terms of problems, both our countries are full of them. So how do you select? How do you prioritize?
Actually, I have a problem with some of my audience. I begin just to have that problem with my audience because I begin just to fix the problem that I have outside of my neighbors, of my street, of the school of my boys, you know. And some of my audience begin just to say like, hey, Super Civico, you should come to our neighbor or you should come to a different state. And I begin just to say like, hey guys, what I'm doing is just an example. I'm not a fixer guy. I mean, I'm using humor to fix these kind of problems, but it's not necessary that you have to use humor for that. Just try to find your own weapon in some way. And for that reason, we create the app, no? I begin just to have like that I don't begin just to feel really well because at the end, yeah, I was having a lot of millions of view interviews from the New York Times, the BBC and whatever, but I begin just to realize that I was fixing just one problem. And for that reason, we made the application. The application, it's a tool in some way that everyone could make his report outside of their houses, and we're gonna make like that connection with the authority and begin just to play with that thing. Hey, authority, just fix the problem of I don't know, Alicia from Cancun, and we're gonna give you our 2 million for free, even if I live in Mexico City. And for that reason, we fix like more than 1,000 problems from different citizens. But even that we already make that big. In some ways, a really big problem for me just to communicate to some Mexicans that that we have to take care of our own trench. This is really important for Supercívicos, and it is really simple. If we're not able just to fix the problem that we have outside of our houses, outside of our trench, we're not going to be able just to fix the bigger problems of our country. We have to begin just with those small problems, those little things. And if every one of us take care of our 50 square meters, just that, we could have like a different neighbor, a different country, a different world. Is really simple, no? So nothing. I begin just to fix the problems that I have. I begin just to select the one that affect me, and it's pretty much normal because I'm not gonna fix the problem of another guy because he has to take care of his own problem. So, but that kind of situation for me was really simple, but begin just to have like an interference in some Mexican. I'm not saying to everyone, but it's a I could say like it's a big percentage. No, the one that is waiting that or los supercívicos or someone to fix the problem, and that's not
we have
logical,
that in Romania. We used to expect the state to fix everything. Now, if you give me an alternative, it's going to be supercívicos or all the social entrepreneurs that want to tackle a big problem. So now we know who to redirect our problems to.
And then I discovered that there's a problem of the citizen, and for sure that the same happened in Romania, Italy, and most of the countries, that we begin just to understand or believe that we're understanding, because it's about understanding, that you could do things just a little, bad things, just a little. I mean, you could park your car outside in a not permitted place, like it's just 2 minutes. Come on, it's 2 minutes. Or the cigars, how do you call the small part?
Cigar butts.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it because come on, it's not trash. It's just a little trash. And that problem, we say the nomás tantito, the just a little, it's really, really bad for our society, because when everyone begins just to put a little of that problem, the problem becomes a big problem always. So we have to think. I always say, like, as the Japanese. I've been in Japan, and I never find like a country more civic than Japan, no? And why and in Japan, they don't have like trash cans. They don't have trash, no. And how they throw like the trash? They take it in their pants, and then they throw it. And you don't see trash in Japan. And here in Mexico is the opposite. The people begin just to throw trash, and when you say like, hey, why do you throw trash in the street? There's no trash cans. And no, man, we don't have to. Everyone has to take care of his little trash in some way. No.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Leticia, who is asking you guys, how did you start this full-on social entrepreneurship? Were you still kind of negotiating with yourself from a regular job to becoming a social entrepreneur, or you jumped right in and make it your life mission?
Go for it, Arturo.
The way that I discovered it really nice, because I never expected. The truth is, like, I begin just to do this work. I begin just to make my work that I'm good making content, no, visual content. It's story. It's and then I realized that this entertainment was like in some way empty. So now, for that reason, I begin just to make the Super Cívicos in a way just to have to make this content with cost, no? And the rest is I'm discovering. I'm amazed. One of the best things that happened to me is Ashoka. That's for me. It's really important just to have like this kind of networks. It's really important just to and to say that there are a lot of networks that they're just wasting our time. They want our photograph or it's not working. And Ashoka is a real. For the first time, I realized that I'm a social and it's really difficult to say that word to me, but entrepreneurship. Okay. Could you help me, Anna? How do you say
entrepreneurship?
Exactly, that thing. And then Ashoka, it was the one who made me just to realize that the thing that I'm doing is more than this content that I discovered. So I'm having this really nice story now, and then and nothing. It does. I never expected. No.
Cool.
I think that's something that. I think that's something that's very much a red line with a lot of people that I know. I didn't plan to become a social entrepreneur. It was not on my list. And to be honest, kind of similar to Arturo. It's not like I was thinking, okay, how can I be a social entrepreneur? I was doing what I was doing, and in a way, really struggling to be strategic and really finding meaning in this because there was a lot at stake. So for me, I was part of the generation that left Romania, and I left with a one-way ticket. I went to the States, I did my master's, I was on my way to climb the corporate ladder in America. I had no desire to come back. But in a way, I felt compelled to do something about this issue of human trafficking when I found out what the gravity was and how big it was. And, I joined an organization to do that. And I kept having this discontent. There should be more. And slowly I started realizing that it's not just about doing everything, it's about being strategic about how you do things. And then through different challenges. So when we were really scarce when it came to resources, we digitalized everything, not realizing that there's going to be a pandemic and that everybody's going to have to digitalize. So in a way, I think it was very much having people and having an extended team, how I like to call you guys at Ashoka, right? Who come and speak value into what you're doing and being strategic about what you're doing. The goal in and of itself is not the social entrepreneurship side. The goal is to accomplish what you want to do, your cause, your mission, whatever it is, right? The problem that you figured out, wanting to solve that with excellency. And then in a way, the rest of it came as a result, if that makes sense.
It does. And we do consider you family, I have to say as well. We have another question that is very interesting from the chat. And the question is, who are the allies that you need in your intervention and you still don't have them on board? And how do you plan to bring them closer?
For me, I believe that, and I could say like for most of the social entrepreneurs, that is really difficult to say to me, it's to get money. That's the truth, no? I mean, those allies that help us just to maintain our causes is the most difficult one to find, because when I talk with my another colleagues, everyone they're talking about like that. No, it's how can we attach with these people, because there's a lot of big companies or foundations that they're trying just to help But at the end, the help is just so little, no? I mean, you could make like a form that, or go into a contest, and at least, or at the end, the best prize is like $10,000. And it's nothing. The truth is nothing for our project. $10,000 is like a, nah. So for that reason, for me, Ashoka, it was like one of those allies that I could say like, this is for real. This is helping me from the beginning, or they help you with money, and that make us at least to feel a little bit some tranquil, some in some ways safer. And but it's a big thing. It's our big challenge. How can we have those kind of allies that help us just to make our projects more bigger, especially that in some way I could say like as an Ashoka member, it's like a focus group. You already prove that the thing that you're doing it's helping the humanity. So if you have like that, it's like the karate, no, the black that thing, no, we already part of that black thing. We're Ashoka fellows, and nothing. Try to help us because we need it. I mean, or it's a focus group. We already prove that the thing that we're doing, every one of us is doing well, no, without beginning from zero, because that's another thing. I could say like every one of us begin with from zero practically, no?
Mm. So you need super companies and super foundations to join the super cívicos.
Yeah, but for us it's difficult just to say yes to everyone. I could put an example, and I believe that I hope that Walmart did not a sponsor of this project, but one, they call them, they call us to help a foundation with boys with cancer. The cause was really good. The truth was really good, but I stopped them before they give us a number. I say like, no, I don't want to work with you, Walmart. Why? Mm-hmm. Because you're Walmart. And we're gonna hire you. And I say like, yeah, but in some way, if I accept your money, Walmart, and you're gonna help us, our organization, it's not okay. I believe that I believe that you're not good for the world. And if I accept like this thing, I become a part of your system, and I don't want to be part of your system. So it's difficult because you have to put things in balance. At least we will do it like with two companies that we say like, the other one, I don't want to say it, but I just say like, no, I'm not gonna receive your money because I believe that is not.
Well, you can also use us because all our partners, like you said, you have the black belt and being selected Ashoka Fellows. We also have the companies and the foundations that we develop long-term relationships. Exactly. That maybe we can help you navigate and engage with. Ioana, what are your unusual allies that are still missing from your intervention, and how you're gonna get to them?
They're not unusual though, but unfortunately they're missing. So and I'm gonna focus on two categories. One, it's the people who think they're too well off to be affected by human trafficking. Right? It's the I don't know. In Romania, it would be the middle class corporate job. Someone who's well enough that they can buy organic and I don't know, go and do all these fancy things in life, who think that they're beyond being affected by human trafficking. And I truly believe that as long as this is not personal for everyone and we don't create a social movement against it, it's not going to work, because it's not just one problem, one big problem that needs to be solved by the state or by someone else, not ourselves, right? So just, I don't know, the average Joe who should be taking this super, super seriously. So in a way, maybe it is shaking out the apathy and growing the empathy. And then the second one, I would have to agree that it is the business sector. And not only by, in our case, not only by being absent when it comes to funding and having some really bad experiences where approaching companies end up in them explaining to us how they don't want to associate with the subject because it's a dirty subject, but to the point where companies have to be ethical in everything that has to do with human trafficking, because a lot of times they benefit from it. So if we're at the table and we have the governmental actors and we have the NGOs, but we fail to bring the private sector, and not just for their money, but also for their implication, for how they do business and for how they value or not value human life, then still I feel like we're far from being able to tackle this successfully.
Because I think sometimes, and I realize that sometimes we forget that human trafficking also touches upon forced labor and children's labor and all the horror stories that we hear only when they get very, very bad from some private environment. So yeah, complicated. We have more questions coming in. Apparently people had something to eat, something to drink, and now they're watching us. So Alberto, what if accidents happen while trying to fix an issue, like a human injury? How will you handle it?
I have, especially a really bad situation, one that makes me just to stop and to talk with my wife and say like, okay, I wanna keep doing this, or we stop. What happened that I was protecting a bike lane with my skateboard. I'm not a biker. I'm a skater. I use the skate. So there was a car who wanted to use the bike lane with his car, and I stop and I say like, no, you're not gonna pass. I never believed. I never thought that this guy was going to use his car just to pass me, no? And I'm alive by a miracle. At the end, it was really hard because I was in how do you say? There's the car and the trunk, not the trunk, the other part, the front of the car. Yeah, the front of the car. He took his car and I was like grabbing with my hands, and this guy began just to drive his car with me in the front of the car, and I was like handling, and at the end I stayed like 15 seconds, and in one of the turns I began just to go. I felt, but it was nothing happened to me. Just my arm, I broke my arm, and that's it. But it was a moment in Los Supercívicos that amazed me, because I never believed like a human was going to use a machine or a weapon just to do the thing that he made. And after that, I changed a lot of things. First, I never stopped again in front of a car, never in Mexico. No, but my wife said like, hey, I'm afraid of the work that you're doing. I don't really like the work that you're doing. And I stop and I say, but I like the work that I'm doing. I'm in some way like a kind of fireman or a policeman. It's part of the thing that of what they're doing. And I believe that we should take those risks. Especially now, especially with all the problems that are happening in our world. Because if we don't take that courage, if we don't take that kind of actions, sooner or later the problem is gonna attack you. So it's much better to do something now, no, to try to protect the bike lane, not with your body, but in a different ways, because sooner or later, if we don't do something, a car is gonna, I mean, and actually it's happening, those kind of things. So it's in some way it's good to take that courage, because it's a logical courage, because otherwise just to wait is the worst thing, no?
Mm-hmm.
And that was my worst
Ioana, how are you
situation.
dealing with risk? Because it just made me realize when we presented, or when I presented, and maybe that was my mistake, anti-human trafficking, we kind of talked about the victims, we talked about citizen participation, authorities, private environment, but let's not forget there are the bad guys that are making this happen. So how are you dealing with the inherent risk of your field of work?
I think here, with the work that we're doing, a lot of times we personally, as an organization, are not in harm's way because we don't necessarily work directly with survivors. So we do this in partnerships. However, as you know, the threat is real, and unfortunately, a lot of times the state fails on the protection side, and you have victims who are being intimidated when they go to trial, or victims who are being threatened, or organizations that are being threatened, and so on. So we are seriously considering how can we develop this side, a close protection program, where in a way we mediate those risks as well. But a lot of times this has to do with awareness, spatial awareness, and clear rules. So in a way, making a parallel and not wanting to minimize this, but I feel like we're living in a time where we're very aware of the risks, and we're aware that we should be washing our hands, and we should be wearing masks, and we shouldn't be touching things, and we disinfect, and we do all these things. When it comes to everyday life, a lot of times we don't pay attention to all the things that happen around us. When it comes to our work, it's so important to always be aware. And then there's different rules, like if you ever do outreach, or if you're in a certain place, we always go in pairs. We never go on our own. So different things, but again, as an organization, because we work a lot on prevention, on capacity building, on advocacy, we are more fortunate, but we are aware of these risks when it comes to our colleagues to do work in assistance, and we want to be of assistance to them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Go, say Arturo. Unmute.
Sorry. And when we make our street battles, let's call it like that, I discovered that when people could get violent, and sometimes they punch me, they kick me, do physical things, and I react as Gandhi. No, I'm not gonna react. And that kind of thing, when you break, especially with in Latin America, the demand that we're supposed to be machos, we're supposed to fight, no, and to prove who is better, no. When they hit me, when I always say, like, I'm not gonna move. If you punch me, you could go to jail. So don't do it, because everyone is recording, no. But some guys, they don't care, and when they punch me and I don't do anything, they don't know how to react. When you break like that violent thing that I discovered from Gandhi. I believe it was like the first time that I saw the non-violence reaction, and it's amazing. It's amazing the way that break the thing, because at the end more violence goes to more violence. It's absurd, and I want to tell that thing, because it happens more than 10 times, situation the same, and they don't know how to react when you break that balance.
I'm also aware of time, and after this session, I'm sure that both of you will go to Swapcard and see all the comments and reflections that were put in there in the chat. I have one last question, which I think for me is fundamental. How do you measure your impact and your success? What will make you go to sleep saying it's good? I know exactly where I am on my path. I know where I want to go. What's my theory of change? And I can put my head down calm at night because it's evening in Bucharest and it made me think of that.
I think for me, every time that we manage to make ourselves redundant as an organization, that's a huge win. So having people pick up the things that we're trying to do, having institutions that actually function, having services that exist, that's our end goal. Like my end goal is to not have to do what I'm doing today in 15 years, maybe 10, who knows. So with that, every time we succeed in a way to implement things that actually change systemic issues, then we're able to do that. But at the same time, because we do work in prevention and prevention is hard to measure, we have this thing where we deal with millions, right? Currently 40.3 people, 40.3 million people who live in a situation that is slave-like or in an exploitative situation. And that's huge, and it can be paralyzing. At the same time, we have this thing where we see the power of one. We see the power of one person who's involved. We see the power of one person who ends up being free. We see the power of one actor changing their attitude. So with that, keeping the big picture in mind, but at the same time celebrating each win, each individual win, and each character change, or each person who's being reported, each case that ends up being discovered in one community, those are all things that help us move forward.
For me, a lot of things. When I walk in the streets and I saw, I don't know, a zebras that they paint because a citizen make the report and I make like the connection, and just to see that incidents, those kind of things. Sometimes I just stop and realize that I'm doing a good job. No. Another thing is the people on the streets. I used to work in television when I was working in MTV, and you have like the rating, no? I mean, it's the most important thing, the rating. And I realized that the best rating that you could have is the true one, no? The one that is not manipulated, is the one that you have on the street. And when I go into the streets, I always, on the street, like with my skate or doing things, when people recognize me and say like, hey, Super Civico, good work, and that makes me just to realize that's the real rating, no? That's the good one. And that's the way that we realize that we're doing, or at least we're going in a good way, no? There's a lot of things just to make, a lot. I don't know if we're gonna be able just to make them, but at least we always say that the éxito of fracaso, éxito, how do you say, a successful thing is not if you win or if you lose, is the one that if you try. And we still all the time trying, and for that's a successful thing, just to be trying.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for this session. I want to remind our audience that the conversation will go on tomorrow from 4 p.m. CET. We'll have another wonderful panel of new fellows tackling how can you address corruption and in the same time solve the SDGs, which I think is going to be also quite interesting and at times technical, I guess. And thank you very much for being with us tonight. We're on time. And keep in touch on Subcard. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care. Congratulations, Joanna, and congratulations, Anna. It was a good conversation. I never feel like it was more than that, no? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.